All right, we've reached that time of the year again for another year. Days fly by like hours, Oscar bait movies make their last push to come out on Christmas, and I'll review about, 2 of the 4 movies that come out on Christmas, this being the second. But me being a James Mangold fan and a fan of musical biopics, I guess, I don't know why, they're easy to take in, reliably entertaining, I suppose. So let's talk about Bob Dylan. So A Complete Unknown's directed by James Mangold, stars Timothée Chalamet as Bob Dylan, follows Bob Dylan's life as a musician from 1961 to 1965. Which is interesting, it's just 1961 to 1965. Bob Dylan's still around. In fact, there was more to tell after the movie ends. At what point do you go, you know what? That's enough of the story. That's where we want to leave it. But the main tension in the movie is when he switches genres. At first, it's all folk music. He's all like, I wanna tell you all a story. At a point, he's like, yeah, but check this baby out. Folks got a little upset about that, which is a far more interesting conversation, I think. It's not just damaged artists, skyrockets to fame, sex, drugs, rock and roll, circle in the drain, downward spiral. Maybe he gets out of it, maybe he doesn't, but that's where it ends. So it revolves around Bob Dylan, but it's more of a conversation of the pressures on an artist to just stay in line. But if the artist outgrows the genre that made them famous, well, what now? Everyone loves the song The Times They Are A-Changin', just not the reality of the context. So at a point, Bob Dylan was like, well, yeah, these electric guitars, they're not so bad, and the whole folk community just started to hate it. Which is funny, since I've seen the movie, I've talked with people about Bob Dylan. I don't know too much about Bob Dylan. Like, I know his music, of course. If they gather around, I'm like, oh yeah, Bob Dylan. But I don't know enough about his life to be able to be like, oh, here's where this movie got it wrong. Here's where they fudged some facts, because all biopics do. But I've unexpectedly run into more than a few people who are like, yeah, I don't like Bob Dylan. Like, if I just took their word for it, I'd be like, is Bob Dylan generally just hated by people? I guess he's like Neil Diamond. You either love him or you don't. Now, Timothée Chalamet, look, it's like this. At a point when someone gets famous, like Timothée Chalamet has, then you hear about them all the time, and you get sick of hearing about them all the time. Timothée Chalamet has hit that with me, so I was going into this movie like, all right, I hear Oscar, but sure. Then I watched the movie and I was like, damn, I wouldn't hate it if he got an Oscar nomination. He's really good in the movie. He disappears in the role. He's really playing the guitar, and he doesn't come across as one note. Again, with that biopic formula, there is a bit of that in the setup here. He does come from humble beginnings. He is a raw talent. And then at a point, he's this introvert that has such a spotlight on him. You can tell it's weighing on him. Edward Norton was great as Pete Seeger. Monica Barbaro as Joan Baez. I'm kind of fast-tracking the support cast, don't mean to be disrespectful. Boyd Holbrook is an absolute standout in the limited screen time he has as Johnny Cash, which is a bit ironic, if not funny, because James Mangold directed Walk the Line. I don't know, he's a complete and total wreck. Not a lot of happiness in these biopics revolving around famous people. It makes me wonder why people would want to be famous at all. Ever. Money, which does not buy you happiness, but can help you live comfortably in misery. That's not my quote. I didn't make it up. I borrowed it. And this is probably the best time to admit this. I did not recognize that Johnny Cash was Boyd Holbrook in this movie. Like, everybody in the movie, I feel, does a great job at not feeling like themselves. You know, they all do a great job at doing the job, acting. Boyd Holbrook as Johnny Cash is kinda next level. Yeah, in the end, it was a really entertaining biopic which looks really accurate to the time. You know how a lot of modern movies that take place somewhere in the mid-century have that weird Instagram filter brown hue to it that just looks green screen and unnatural? This movie doesn't have that. It actually feels like you are in the 60s. And I appreciate that. At a point, I'm gonna have to stop using the phrase mid-century because we are closer to the mid-century of this century than we are to the previous one. Well, I'm leaving now. Not yet. I am gonna pour myself a stiff drink over that realization though. But it was well acted, interesting, shows the weight of fame on someone who just didn't expect to be famous, apparently. It's a movie that, yeah, it's about Bob Dylan, but it's also about the pressures of fame, not just the general pressures of fame that we've seen a million times before in biopics, but the pressures that come from the expectations from the community you've become famous in. All centered around a really solid performance by Timothée Chalamet. The illustration of passage of time kind of sucks. There were moments where I was like, oh, it's been a couple years. It doesn't feel like a couple years. Some things feel fast-tracked in this one. Kind of like I'm fast-tracking this review, but like I said, this close to Christmas, lots to do, little time to do it. But still wanted to let you know A Complete Unknown is a good time. No alcohol required. All right, so A Complete Unknown. Have you seen it? Are you looking forward to it? Are you gonna see it this Christmas? Whatever you think, comment below, let me know. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more.